Here we go. Let me make sure the music's at a level similar to last week. And let me open up my comments. Got the comments up. Let me write something. Feel free to say hello. Thank you, Joel. I'm very glad to hear that it's coming through loud and clear. Many thank yous. Let's see if I can get this to pop out here. Awesome. Got the music, got the chat, got my tea. Let's get started. So thank you so much for coming to Watercolor Wednesday. The whole point is to relax. It's an hour and 30 minutes of sitting in a safe place, chilling out, sipping tea. You can either parallel paint with me and follow along, or just stream it in the background while you do something else, or while you're crafting. If you want to build your own art supplies, you can click on the link below in the description. And also, this stream and the streams for the rest of this year are going to be raising funds. I started a fundraiser, also in the link, for Food Share, Ventura County. I live in Ventura County, so it supports the families around me. And the more views that we get on this, the more YouTube will push it in front of other people. So you just watching right now will actually help get the link and the fundraiser in front of other people. Now, at the end of the day, this day at 8:25, I will be looking at, let me pull that up, the donations page link below in the description. And if somebody has a public link, because if you post it anonymously, I won't know who it is. Whoever gives the largest donation will receive tonight's watercolor painting as a thank you gift. I will mail it to you. And that's why I need to see your name. If you're anonymous, then, blessings and angels upon you. Thank you for your donation. Somebody actually donated today. It was wonderful to see their comment too. So it's also a nice place to go to see people supporting the community. So let's get started on the actual art. I'm feeling Feathered Serpent this evening. I actually have an art show this weekend where it's a sculpture, and in it there is a small feathered serpent. It's called Sisters of Feather, and I definitely have feathered serpents on the mind. So we're going to start by drawing that, and then we're going to paint it. If you have any questions, just put them in the chat. I will try to come up for error every once in a while from my drawing. I get a little focused sometimes, and I will address any questions or comments that you may have. And let me make sure that you can see the frame. In focus. Yeah. All right, so if you are drawing along with me, where's this shadow coming from? Let me fix that for you. There, that's a little better, a little brighter. Yeah, now the only shadow is my hand. Totally acceptable. If you're following along, feel free. I'm just going to start explaining how to draw a basic feathered serpent. The snakes are also known as danger noodles because they're adorable. You don't have to like snakes to draw a feathered serpent. We're going to start with an oval for the face, and I'm actually going to start with my 2H pencil. Just an oval anywhere in the middle, and then we're going to do a basic S shape. You don't have to worry about the width of the neck yet. And then part of my, when I'm sketching, I like to block out where a lot of the movement is going to be before I add the details. So I'm going to do a basic triangle shape for those feathered ears. Trust the process. And now that I see that I've got all this white space up here, I think that'll be a nice way to bring the tail around. So I'm going to have the tail up here. I'm going to do kind of like an arrow shape. So we're going to have feathers here. And now I'm going to look at the thickness of the serpent. So the thickness of the neck is maybe just a little bit less than the head. I'll make the head a little bit larger, actually, now that I'm seeing this. The more scribbles, the better. You're all good. So I've got my oval, my little triangles, little S shapes. Let me get a darker pencil now so you can see. Eye is going to be nice and big for me here. So an oval inside of the oval. The nose likes to taper a little bit. And now time for some feathers. So we're just going to do big oval, smaller oval, smaller oval. It's a little bit like a axolotl. We're going to get into the feather details in a moment. And it's okay if they go off the frame. This is actually an accidentally quite cute little figure 8. Tea time. So the key to a feather, so that it doesn't look like a cute little axolotl, is a center line in each of those ovals. And then from the center line, draw a couple of straight lines. And I like to put notches on the ends of the feathers. And as we build the feathers, with the texture and the notches, it starts to come to life. So this feathered serpent is going to have lots of feathers. So I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to repeat that. And as the feathers come out, they get longer and fancier. And I'll have a couple of small ones here too. Notches are always fun to put into the feathers. And then the other side, I'm not going to put in as much detail because the brain will fill in the rest of that. I'm going to just put that into shadow. For the eye, I like to draw a bit of a shadow. Keeps the eye mysterious, like it's set into the head of the snake. And then snakes and reptiles tend to have this hood over their eye. So I'm going to bring in a little bit of that. And then their mouth goes past their eye. That's what makes them feel a little bit more reptilian. Little danger noodle. And then regarding the textures, you can go as much or as little as you want. I want this one to have a nice big earring in the feathers because that makes sense, right? Tea time. When I sip tea, all together, take a minute, relax, take a breath, relax your shoulders. tea I am drinking is ginger lemon. So the fun thing about reptiles that I really enjoy is the way their bodies twist. So I'm going to start with the belly, and then I'm going to have the belly twist around to the other side. And then I follow that line. And I'm going to put in some more texture here. And I actually want this serpent to be a little bit more feathered, not all scales. And then for the tail, we're going to get some more ovals that we're going to turn into notches. So the idea is to get the feeling and the idea of a feather before you get into the details of the notches and the center lines. So we're doing the center lines and the feathers now, and some of the lines. These are the big fluffy tail feathers. I'm keeping it pretty loose because we're going to start painting soon. Notches. Notches. And it's nice when it goes off frame, because then it feels a little bit framed by the content inside. So for today's painting, we're going to be using the classic Fine Tech shimmer colors and my classic Dr. P.H. Martin's. These are both in the link in the description. Tea time. And I kind of want this guy to be even more fantastical, so I'm going to put some more feathers along its back. And I'm going to continue that. And then here's the center line for the back. So I know where to put the rest of the feathers. Is that coming in? Excellent. All right. We're just going to get some basic colors on right now. Let's see. I want a round brush, but not one that's very large. This one will do. Get a little bit of water in here. Now to pick the greens. I think I'm going to do greens, blues, and a little bit of purple as well. Let's just start with one tone right now. We'll start adding blues and purples later. Let's just get the shadows in. I'm going to be using ice green. When it comes to watercolor, it's very hard to lift the paint off the paper once it's been applied. one of the ways to combat that is to wet the paper a little bit where you're going to paint. So let's begin. Actually, I think I want a bluish green. I like to test it on a paper towel or a sample of the paper to the side. You see it in the camera? Yeah, I think I'm more turquoise. I'm feeling turquoise for this guy. Yeah, that's more in line. And I know I said we're not going to be doing the dark blues, but I do want to dull this green a little bit right now. And I think blue would be a nice way to do that. Like a dark bluish purple. Yeah, so we get kind of a soft greenish brown. Turn the music up a little bit for you guys. Hopefully it's coming through. All right, let's get some shadows painted. So I'm going to start protecting where I want the whites to be on the page. That means I avoid where I think the highlights are going to be for this little snake. Alright, good, the colors are coming through. Get some center lines in here. So for shadowing the feathers, I'm not really paying attention right now to color that I want the feathers. I just know that I want the shadows to be bluish, greenish, and I start putting in the layers so that I can start to feel the feathered serpent come forward with where the shadows are. So I lay those on first. Cute song. We're going to something a little bit more mellow. Just for me. Right now I'm not looking for music that makes me want to get up and dance. I need music that lowers that cortisol. So these feathers that are behind, I'm just going to throw those all back into shadow. And then have a couple of those back here too. And as the paint dries, I can keep layering on more shadow. Just layer, layer, layer. And I'm focusing on putting more detail in the face, and then we can get really loose with the watercolors. And the rest of the page. And that'll give it a lot of movement because it's a flying serpent. And if it feels like it's moving, it makes the piece all that more exciting. It's a personal choice. I really like to make it very dark around the eye and then leave the painting for the eye very last. But that all depends on how you want to plan your painting. I'm going to always leave a little bit of space for that white. Or you can come in afterwards with gesso. I love gesso. Yeah, I got feathered serpents on the brain. As that layer is dry, as I keep layering on more and more. And this is how you control how much shadowing you have in your piece. You don't have to go on with full 100% pigment unless you want. But if you want to build slowly and see your piece evolve as you work on it, applying layers is a really good way to do that. And I'm very lucky that it's very hot in my studio right now, so the paint is drying pretty quickly. We're going to leave a couple of spots, just white, to give the impression that there's some sort of light glinting off. Oh, that was very pigmented. I'm just going to go with it. Alright, let's go pigmented there. Even it out a little. So now to create some texture along the stomach of the snake, I'm just going to continue that pattern. And I'm pretending that the light source is coming from about here. So I'm going to stay consistent with that. As the snake's body moves, change the amount of shadow on his body according to how much light is coming from this pretend location in my mind. And as we get farther away from the head, I'm going to get looser in the way I paint. Be mixing this green with this darker blue. I'm starting to paint in these feathers. So here I think I want the body to kind of go into shadow, and then I'm going to highlight the tail and the head with a darker background up here. So right now I'm just planning on doing some color blocking to plan this out. Whoops, see that? Undiluted. And now it's glued to the paper, so now I gotta be consistent with the rest of it. That's what makes it look like it's on purpose. If you make a mistake, make the same mistake over and over. And if you're just joining, if you are watching, thank you so much for being here, because your presence is actually helping me get views on this stream. And if more people get views on this stream, they'll look at the description. And if they look at the description, they'll see that I have a fundraiser there for Food Share of Ventura County. And hopefully they'll click on it. And if they're able to, they'll donate. And whoever donates and leaves their name at the end of the night at 8:25, I'll take a look at it. And whoever donated the most, I will gift them this painting. And we're going to be doing this most Wednesdays until December 17th. Let's get the center line on some of these. See, committing to that mistake. It's a great way to bring in some really dramatic shadows right now. And then let's bring in some more of that contrast to the face, because wherever there is contrast, the most contrast in a piece, that's where your eye will go, typically, as the viewer. Let's bring some more of this to the feathers back here. Alright, we're going to do some big swashes of color now. So it's time to wet the paper first. And here's where we're going to kind of set the mood for the color that our feathered serpent's going to be. Cute song, skipping for chillness. This is right there. This is got a little bit more movement. still chill. Almost. All right, we'll try it. So I totally do not mind that we're just mushing the color about, because the background is supposed to make our brain go, oh, that's where some more feathers and body is. So I'm going to turn it around so I don't smudge all the paint. So we're going from shadow. Man, I'm going to save this playlist for later because this is nice. But for some reason I have difficulty talking when I'm listening to words. Let's try something. It's hard for me to talk to you guys when I'm listening to words. I don't know why my brain does that. That was a good one. I'll probably save that playlist for when I'm painting alone. This one's called Jazzy Nights. Jazzy indeed. Speaking of jazzy nights, tea time. So if you're painting along, if you're doing a craft, go ahead and drop a comment. Let me know what you're working on. Or if you're just hanging out, I need to listen to somebody go, yap, yap, yap. Colors, paint. Wow. Because that works too. So I'm just going to wet this whole tail and just start playing with some color. Because this is controlled and wonderful and all. But sometimes I just need the colors to go sploop. Because that's what I'm here for. That's what helps me relax. Is watching the colors decide where they want to go. Now we can go in with details afterwards. Oh. So let me see if I can get this zoomed in for you to see. This is what I'm here for. It's my favorite part of watercolor. Here. The way it likes to go where the water is. It creates these really lovely effects. And if watercolor's looking a mess, just keep working it. It comes together in the end. And there's so many ways to use it. Right now we're doing kind of a moderately controlled start and then going into the very uncontrolled arena. I'm going to show you a cute cheat code in a minute. So we've got the shadow here. We should probably connect the shadow and that shadow together actually. Let's do a little bit of work there. so it's cohesive there. And then we're going to do a little bit of green now on the wrist, the main area. So we've got this beautiful bright green. I'm going to dilute a little bit. And because I'm going little area by little area, I'm going to take a diluted, oh, it needs to be more diluted. Let's add water, water. And take a very diluted green and start filling in our serpent. And what I'm doing right now is actually I can have a little bit more pigment. I'm saving where the whites are, best I can, so that the face has the most amount of contrast and control, and then we get real loose and spray and wacky with the rest. So I think I finally have the green diluted to the point that makes me happy. Yeah. See how those shadows are still there and coming through as we put the layers on? And now I'm going to need my flat brush because I'm going to start layering on some of that green here. You know what, actually, maybe a little bit more control around the neck. So I do want to preserve some of the white. So right there, that's where I want to preserve some of the white. Bring in a little bit more shadow to the areas where it's wet. And flat brush time. Get this to dry a little faster. Fan here. You can also use a mechanical fan, but I find that is very noisy. And even if I wasn't on a live stream, I probably would only use it if I had to. I think if we just wait a little bit longer, it will dry quickly. Just enough for me to start filling in that background, so I can show you how to get the water to run up and around. It's safe along the edges now. So we're going to focus on the face. I'm turning it upside down so it's easier for me to do that line. It's just easier for the muscles in my hand. So I'm going to wet this area. And then I'm going to come in with this very, very saturated blue here. Right there. just go right next to where the brightest spot would be. And then let the paint start running into the wet spot that I created. I'm going to continue that at the top here. And it's really fun to see how it immediately throws the background behind visually the head, just because we saved that little white rim light there. I'm going to do it to the feathers too. And the fun thing about that is even if you didn't plan for a rim light, you can always add it at this point. Just paint a little bit off the edge of what you planned. Get some more of that iris blue. I'm just adding more and more pigment and letting the watercolor create its own texture here. Turn it carefully because I don't want to disrupt what it's doing. You can get it to tilt and drip and do whatever you like. But I'm really, really enjoying these fractals. I love it when it does that. So I'm going to do the same thing in here in this space. So I wet the middle so that the fractals have something to work their way into. And then I have to be careful around this earring if I want to preserve it looking shiny. So I'm just going to go ahead and get a little water in there to control it. And let's see. See, it only follows where the water went. And if you're having a hard time controlling watercolor, it's usually just because there's a lot of wet spots going on. But in this case, we don't want to control it. We're letting it kind of be free in its own way. So even though I didn't plan to have a rim light around the bottom of the jaw, I really like the effect that's happening there. It's making the feathered serpent really pop. So I'm just going to continue that, even though I didn't plan on it. And let's see if the fractals want to do their magic on this side. It's already drying. My studio is so warm. So we're just going to add water here. And we're going to meet the fractals. And then you'll see the water pull the fractals into where they are. The water molecules will say, "Come here, come here." Watch. I'll try not to tilt it too much. So it's actually meeting the water. Because if I put the water here, it'll start pulling the paint towards itself here. And it creates that really lovely fractal look. And I can also just help it out here by touching it, but it's not the same effect as it pulling the paint towards itself. So now around the nose, this is where we really get to define the silhouette of our character. Feathered serpents are technically majestic, fearsome creatures of lightning and wind and power, but I made a really, really cute one, and we're just going to be okay with that. Here we go. Oh, fractal heaven. Yes. Yeah, that's why I'm here. And as it dries, you're going to see it fade a little bit, change a little bit. And now I'm going to go in with a little bit less saturation here. Because I don't want to compete too much with that beautiful texture that we created just now. So this is what I was talking about earlier, where I like to establish one little controlled area, and then we let the paint kind of muck about on its own way when we can the rest of the time. I think this might be a good time to bring in a little bit of a complementary color, maybe like a pink or a red, just a touch to warm up the blue into maybe a touch more of a purple. We'll do that. Wash this one out. I'll do right there. Oh, that's orange. Let's take this one out. Borrow some from here. Let's put some of that blue in there. Oh yes, there we go. Test and happy. So I'm actually only creating a field for the darker pigment to move into right now. I'll show you what I mean. So I'm getting a wash of a complementary color going. I've accidentally made it quite wet. That was not my intention. But we'll see what happens with this amount of wetness, because you just need a little bit of moisture for the fractals to come through. But let's see what happens with this amount of wetness. It moves, but it's not as thirsty, if you know what I mean. If your fractals are thirsty, they'll move a little bit farther. You'll get a little bit more texture. Does that make sense? Keep your fractals thirsty. So now we're just going in here to the feathers to give the brain an illusion that, oh, there's detail happening there. But I'm not really getting into the detail. Just creating the illusion. So it's a little too wet for the fractal to get pulled in the way that I like. So I'm going to cheat. And since it's dry here, tilt. And you'll see the fractals start to travel slowly. If this was a time lapse, the experience would be different, but we're not here for that. And sometimes if you put a little water around the fractal. It'll pull that paint towards itself. Just pulls that fractal out a little bit more. There we go. I'm going to create a wet field again. Yeah. So I let this side dry a little bit. And the fractal detail is starting to pull itself with a little bit more urgency to get to that water. And so we've got our feathered serpent framed now with the darkest spots. So to keep the focus there on our feathered serpent, actually I'm feeling pretty good about putting in the eye right now as the darkest spot. Because if you notice, I preserved white in the paper. So if I put the darkest spot next to the lightest spot on the paper, your eye will automatically go to that. I am a fan of brown when it comes to watercolor, pupils, dark spots, shadows, because there's a warmth to it. And when you're painting quickly and you don't have a lot of time to put in gorgeous layers, it keeps your shadows soft. One of the best ways to soften your shadows so they don't feel flat, so that the shadows feel rich and deep, is you use lots of layers. So you might layer in a pink before you lay in the dark purple or the gray or the black, and so it shines through in the paper. But we're painting quickly. We've got about an hour and a half to finish this piece. And we're just doing like a layer of color. So I like to use brown because it carries a bit of warmth with it already. And let me see if I can find my teeny tiny. Yeah. So right now it's really popping off that page. So I'm going to put a little bit of help here with another dark blue, so that that dark spot is not just by itself. And actually this line work is quite satisfying. And after we do the background, what I'll probably do is come in and just do a little bit of line work on touches on some of those feathers on that feathered serpent. So let's see, let's do some more background, messy, fractal situation. So I'm going to dilute this now because I want the darkest fractals to be around the center of my piece. I'm just going to dilute them a little bit and just do the same thing, but with paint that isn't quite as pigmented. And if you're just joining us, hello. This is Watercolor Wednesday. We chill out, drink tea, paint. And for tonight, there's a link for a fundraiser to a food share in Ventura County. And the person who donates the most this evening by 8:25 will receive this painting as a thank you in the mail. All right, we start with water. So my water always gets very dirty, so I like to have backup. This water will be good when creating washes where I want that color. Here we go. Time for fractals. So I've wet the area. And here we go. Not a fractal because I've made the water too wet, and we're just gonna go with it. Oh, I don't know if you got to witness that little swirl. Oh, I love this. My favorite part. I hope you're enjoying it as well. Please leave me any questions if you want to know anything, if you have worries, concerns, or if you want to share what you're working on. I'm going to help it a little bit with a tilt. And keep that tilt. I just drop more pigment. Just adding more. Letting the paint take me where it wants to go. So much movement. We're going to bring in some more of that purple over here. And then I want to see what will happen if I add some of the purple here into these fractal areas. Pretty. All right, let's keep painting this background. I think I am ready for a little bit more pigment on that purple here, on this side. So now I'm mixing on the paper because this area is more of an idea for the brain to fill in. There's not as much importance here, so I get to have a lot of freedom in how I apply the paint. And I can see how this feather is visually a little bit confusing here, so I'm just going to cheat, pretend I never painted that. And instead do one of these. And that is why we work from lightest to darkest. So it gives that area a little bit more visual control. I very rarely say this, but sometimes simpler is better. And in this case, when it came to these feathers, there was just a lot going on. Fill in this area here. Let's keep those notches. All right, time for the rest of the background. All right, not too wet, just wet enough to pull the fractals. So as you see, I'm not dropping a lot of pigment on. I'm pulling the paint across the paper, and so there's less of it to pool into fractals, and then you get softer edges. I'm gonna add some more water into that. Now I'm just gonna add water, 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 water. So as the paper is buckling, it's creating its own little rivers for the fractals. That is not a problem. I love that. So I have made that spot very wet, so we're moving on now. Ooh, let's put a little bit more of this in there though. All right, so I want more of these fractals here by the tail. So again, we're going to wet the area around it, and I'm going to go in with lots of the pigment. And let it find its way to the moisture on the paper. I'm just going to come in here and control this little area spot. So see how there's these fractals on the face? I do want to get some more shadow around here, but I don't want to ruin this flat fractal work that happened there. So I'm just going to wet a bit around and try not to wet the fractal too much. And then go in with pigment. So there's a lot of moisture, so I dry my brush and I dab it onto the paper towel and I pick up that extra. Because I put too much water on there, and instead of doing fractals, it's pooling. Again, not a bad thing, but I'm trying to get those fractals. There we go. There they are. So we've got the background moving electrically. We've got colors. So now what I'm going to do is get some fine line work in there. Thank you, Leticia Ortiz, for donating. I think you might be the one who gets this painting as a thank you. Thank you so much for, if anybody's wondering, the fundraiser link is in the description of the video. And it's hard times for everybody. It's to donate to the food share program. If you are able to donate any amount, that's going to help them. $1 is 3 meals. That's how they can stretch their money at the food share in Ventura County. They're really an amazing organization, and they do really cool work. And they have facility tours too for free that you can go see. So yes, thank you, Leti. She made a donation, and it's a very high amount. Thank you so much. It's very generous. I foresee you getting tonight's painting as a thank you. And thank you for feeding the families in Ventura County. And everybody watching right now, you are supporting, because YouTube will push my video in front of new viewers because you're here and showing interest. And so you're helping just by hanging out. I have to spin this because of the way my muscles are in my hand. It's easier for me to do lines this way than this way. And so when I have lines that I need to do this way, I will turn my piece accordingly. Let me just check something real quick. There we go. And we're ready. So I'm going in straight with the pigment with this very, very fine, it's called a line brush when they're this thin and they have length to them. And I'll try not to muck up my paint. I am intentionally playing with how much pigment I have on my brush. So right now it's straight pigment. Maybe you'll see the difference. It's straight pigment, no dilution, because I want a hard edge on that feather. And we're not going to do it to all the feathers. So straight pigment, no dilution. But to add depth and a little bit of vibrancy to the piece. Aw, thank you for your comment too, Leti. Thank you for all your support. So we have that as pure pigment, and then I'm going to dilute it a little bit so that when we go into the middle, it's not fighting. See, I'm using this hand to steady this hand because it's all wet here. So they're not fighting each other. Putting a little bit of texture in there. Pure pigment for the outside. So my hand is off the paper right now and I'm using this hand to steady it. I don't know what you call this. There's a term for it, I'm sure, because I see people do it all the time. So I've diluted, putting in a little detail into the middle. And it matches, it gives the impression of the color. That one was a little too light. And again, because I like having one area tight and everything else kind of loose and moving, we're only worried about these tight lines around the face, maybe the earring, things that usually feel hard to your brain. So the mouth, that's a hard line. The front feathers that you usually touch on a wing are going to be the hardest feathers, not so downy. And then the earring would be metal. So sometimes with certain pieces, our brain will follow the meaning of a thing based on the type of line you draw. And it's our brain doing that. It's fascinating. And these little details are very satisfying to me as a painter. So I kept a little bit of highlight naturally on the paper, and then I put the dark line next to it, and it makes my brain feel like there's a bit of a gleam on the earring. And I love little things like that, little touches like that. Help bring the contrast, as high a contrast as possible, to the face of the feathered serpent. Use the most pigmented line here at the top, right next to the highlight of the head. So now for the rest, I'm going to do more diluted line as they taper off. Oh, how are we doing on time? Oh gosh, I got 15 minutes left. This is actually going to be right on time, actually. So if you want to make a donation for a thank you in the mail in the form of this painting, you have until 8:25. And then I will be doing this again next week. You can donate to the fundraiser whenever you like. But if there's going to be a thank you original watercolor painting mailed to you, please donate during the live stream. But again, anything that you can share with the families of Ventura County will be appreciated. $1 is literally 3 meals. You can also donate food to the food bank. You could just take it there. And the other thing you can do is hang out here and watch this video. Paint with me and reset your nervous system. Because the highest form of resistance is joy. Joy in your community. Joy with yourself. Joy in having a moment to yourself and resetting your nervous system. High cortisol levels are no joke. So I'm going to start tapering off this color here. I'm actually going to change this song because you are all very welcome here. This is a fun song though. Here we go. You are all welcome here. So I think for next week, the live stream, what I'm going to do is create a coloring page that's just free to download. And it'll be a coloring page that is relevant to what I'm drawing. So while I'm painting or watercoloring, if watercolor is too high of an ask for you, you can just color with crayons, with markers, with coffee. Yes, you can paint with coffee. Just a black and white drawing, but with brown instead. We call that sepia tone. I should do a YouTube tutorial on that. I'm going to make you guys a YouTube tutorial on how to paint with coffee. So if you don't want to buy art supplies, then don't. Don't do it. Art supplies are expensive. Unfortunately, I didn't really have my priorities straight in art college. And I wouldn't eat so that I would be able to afford art supplies. And then my then boyfriend, now husband, would take me out to eat. And I would just stuff myself full on the weekends. Mind you, when he found out, he took me grocery shopping. So I'm just highlighting some of these textures. How are we doing on time? 8:20. 5 more minutes, y'all. 5 more minutes to donate for a chance to receive a handmade watercolor painting in the mail as a thank you from me. This watercolor painting. This one. So sometimes when the paint pools, just pick it up with your brush and swipe. I did that thing again where I got really focused. I stopped talking. And then I don't fix it. I'm like, feathers, texture, getting lost in the details. Here we go. For everybody watching right now, thank you so much for being here. Relaxing together, decompressing together. Like a low demand environment. Feels really nice. And then we're going to let this become loose with a couple of texture right here. Not a lot of detail as it goes behind. And then we bring the detail back into the tail. 823. Turning for the sake of the muscles in my hand, being able to do the line smooth. Go, last line. And here we have a finished feathered serpent with lightning vibes around it. And let's go ahead and sign it with pencil where it's dry. Go. 825, y'all. Let's take a look. We had a wonderful anonymous donation as well before all this started. And Letty with $52.50. Thank you so much for your donation. I will be mailing this to you. You are actually one of my patrons as well at my Patreon because you are that kind of a giving, generous soul. So I actually have your address and you'll be receiving this in the mail. Thank you again. Thank you also for showing up so consistently, for spreading the word, for donating and feeding the families in Ventura County. And for everybody else that showed up, thank you so much. The more eyes there are on the feed, on my live stream, the more people will see it because YouTube says, oh, look, people are looking at this. Let's show this to other people. And that gives more people an opportunity to see the links, to donate, and maybe get some free art or just hang out, lower their cortisol because we all need that right now. So let's see here. That's done. Put her over here. And then what I can also do is, if you have any requests for fantasy creatures or fairies or subject matter that you would like us to work on next week, I will create a downloadable, free from my website coloring page, so of whatever subject that is. So you wouldn't have to draw it yourself. You can if you like. You can follow along or just download that and paint on it. If you print it onto thicker paper, you can paint with whatever you like. If you print it onto just printer paper, you can use coloring pencils. So you can either send me an email through my website, you can comment on this video, or you can go to my Patreon and follow me there, and you can also take the poll there. So I will be taking requests, I will be doing a poll, and then I hope to see you next week, Wednesday, and we'll be doing the fundraiser again. So you don't have to donate, you just join and watch and relax. And if you can, share with somebody, because that helps everybody. And one more look at what we created this evening. Thank you, Letty, for your very generous donation. And also for whoever donated anonymously earlier today. Thank you so much. That was very generous. I appreciate all of you. And I don't think you want to watch me clean up, but I will take a sip of tea and enjoy this music for a moment longer. So I'll be taking requests, and I look forward to seeing what you guys say. So let's see what we'll paint next week. Whoop whoop. Alright, I am going to end this now. I miss you guys already. Thank you so much. And take care of yourselves. We need you. And I'm glad you're here.